Good evening. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I invite you to join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Gary.
Here.
Pepcorn. Preston.
Here.
Strand.
Here.
Mahoney.
Here. Health. Fargo Public Health is continuing to distribute the COVID-19 vaccine through the eligible priority groups. Vaccination is very important for anybody who can receive it, and the health department asks everybody to consider being vaccinated when it is offered. Fargo Public Health also appreciates the community's patience as they work through this process. It's very dependent on how much of the vaccine we get, and the community as a whole has to be at 70 to 80%. So we would encourage everybody to get the vaccine when they can get it. The library's online winter readathon starts Monday and runs through February 28th. And readers who participate can enter for prize drawings. The library's outdoor story walk on the plaza near the Sodbuster statue features the story Dancing Feet by Lindsay Craig through February 28th. Pause for Reading returns January 9th for a virtual session of reading fun for emerging readers and features animals from Therapy Pets of the Red River Valley. The DIV Calming Kit is one of January take and make activities for adults and will be available starting January 11th. The Dial Story service will add children's lines starting January 11th, in addition to short stories, poetry, and Shakespearean monologues for adults and teens already offered. The service will now feature a line just for kids to hear children's stories, jokes, and other engaging materials recorded by the children's librarians. And any of you who watch the librarians' little skits, it's very much fun to watch the librarians when they try to tell jokes. So please try to enjoy that. Inspection Department has published a summary of the rental inspections policy and protocol on its website to show what is required when you own rental property. Information on what to expect for tenants and property owners, and helpful information for the tenants. The Amazon project is moving along at a fast pace. They're showing it to now, and the construction of the actual structure has started. This is a massive building when you get out there just to see the size of what this warehouse is going to be. In police, Joan Schaefer, a police sports specialist for the Fargo Police Department for more than 14 years. Unfortunately, she passed away on December 21st after a courageous battle with cancer. Chief said she worked up for her last month of her life, so that's truly dedication. And I would say we'd have a moment for silence for her passing. They are going to have a memorial service this week sometime, and it should be on our website, Chief, or on the police website? Police, okay. Some other news, the police department, they had 109 applications for the 2021 Fargo Police Academy, of which 76 were interviewed for 20 spots available at the academy. Fargo police officers, along with law enforcement officers from the West Fargo Police Department, Cass County Sheriff's Office, and North Dakota Highway Patrol, participated in an annual Cops and Kids program hosted by the Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge 1. They do this every year. And the Fargo Police Department works with local law enforcement and schools to bring youth shopping for holiday gifts for their family. On December 21st, members of the community engagement team assisted with the Salvation Army in handing out holiday food boxes to families in the area. Many of the people very much appreciated that and their participation. Finally, the Communications Department Division of Creative Services worked with the Fargo Police Department to showcase two of the PD's most recent community engagement events. Let's enjoy the videos.
We're just partnering with the Salvation Army today. They did something similar to this during Thanksgiving time, where they had a food drive for people to come through, and this year it kind of fits our scope of outreach and to reach people, to interact with them and connect with them, and so that's what we're doing here today. I think it's super positive for us to just have as much non-enforcement engagement as we can, and so when we can just connect with people and their kids, give out stickers and connect with families in a way that's non-threatening, non-enforcement based, it's just really positive for them to see police in that manner. Because families right now have gone through a lot, especially with COVID. For us to give back and to go forward and really help with this mission, I just think it's good for people to see that we care about them, that the Salvation Army cares about them, that the city of Fargo cares about them.
Very good. Good job, Chief. Glad they could be out there doing these stuff. Is there a motion to approve the order of the agenda continuing item 26C to the 5:15 on January 11th, 2021?
I so move.
Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the December 14th, 2020 regular meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And carried. And is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items 1 through 24?
So move.
Second. Any discussion? If not, roll call, please.
Strand,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Preston,
Aye.
Mahoney.
Aye. We're going to go to the public resident comment at this point. The rules are on the screen for people to observe. Our first speaker tonight is Christopher Cohen. Christopher, it's this mic over here. Sorry. And your time limit is 2.5 minutes. The timer starts once you start talking, so.
Yeah, well, I had two concerns that I wanted to bring here today. One of them is the openness of the city government here. And I think I've understood through a journalist at the forum that the city has declared that it believes it's very open. And I think I've asked some of you if that's correct, that have you declared that the city government is indeed trying to be as open as possible? And I don't think I've received an answer. Now, personally, I think that it's not entirely open. Now, what I've been trying to do is be an informed citizen and try to participate in some of the projects of the city and be as informed as I can about what's going on and try to contribute positively as a citizen based on certain things that I know and I think that I can contribute. But it's very difficult to do that when there's a very strict control of information here, and information is very hard to get. In some cases, in most cases, I've actually had to put in open records requests just to find out answers to basic questions. And I don't think that the residents of Fargo should have to put in an open records request just to get answers to basic questions. Now, what I'd like to see is that as much information as possible be put up on the city website. And that would allow the residents of Fargo to peruse all that information if they wish to, learn as much as they can, and then be positively contribute to the city. And I think, yes, it might be a little bit messy. People will come in and have an awful lot of opinions that you'll have to listen to. But ultimately, it will work out well. Now, I know personally myself, I've moderated some of my opinions once I've learned more about what the city has done and why it's done things. And I think most people are reasonable and will do the same. So also, I'm concerned that the emails are being gotten rid of after just 6 months, all emails. And I think what you could do is prioritize some of those emails and retain them longer, even if there are storage limitations. And I just think we could invest a little bit in. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Jensen?
Thank you. I represent the group CLEAN, that's Citizens Local Energy Action Network. We have some 140 members and several affiliated associations, reaching nearly 1,000 Fargo-Moorhead citizens working for success of the areas of climate and sustainability initiatives. We commend the City of Fargo with its steps towards sustainability and resiliency, and congratulate our city with its recent commissioning of the ROCO, or Roberts Commons parking ramp, the solar array, battery backup, and the electrical vehicle
Your
charging.
line has been muted. Your line has been unmuted.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
We also commend the city on its methane recovery program from its landfill and its composting program. Recognize the great effort carried out by eFargo project a few years ago, making the city of Fargo national news and becoming the winner of the Georgetown University Prize. The community involvement in this project showed our citizens' interest in an environmentally friendly city. Our objective is to source Fargo's energy requirements 100% carbon-free by 2030. 1,850 local governments have already signed on to a declaration of climate emergency, with one of the good side effects being that more quality jobs are created while we clean up our environment. We also ask you not to place any bets on the fictitious CO2 capture equipment promoted by Minnesota's Project Tundra. There really is no evidence that such a CO2 carbon capture program is financially feasible. It would be far more cost-effective to repower and replace coal through combined cycle natural gas and steam turbine plants. We furthermore recommend that the city's public bus transportation and service vehicles should rapidly transition to electric energy or renewable natural gas. The City of Fargo must, in our opinion, be on the leading edge of clean energy alternatives. CLEAN has in the past provided the city with outlines for how a sustainability goal can be achieved based on proven plans applied by other municipalities around the Midwest. It is all right to be critical of new initiatives like sustainability, but it's unwise to ignore the climate change our globe is experiencing. Finally, we request the Sustainability Commission be given meaningful budget commensurate with its ambitions and initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. We have a few minutes before 5:15, so I go to item 30. Do I have a motion to approve the application for property tax exemptions?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Gary?
Yes. Yes.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Application for games of choice to the Vietnam Veterans of American Chapter 941 for a raffle on 4/30/21. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Gary?
Yes.
Preston?
Yes.
Strand?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye. So at least we can get Donald Chris up here to in our first part. We can at least tee it off here till we're ready for public opinion. Donald Chris, you have item 26A, zoning change from limited commercial and multi-dwelling residential to multi-dwelling residential. Darlene's first edition, 721 University Drive South. Approval recommended by the Planning Commission on 12/1. First reading of a rezoning ordinance. Donald Crest to explain with his Christmas sweater on.
Same one as every year, sir. Thank you.
They seem sharper every year, John.
I try to keep in good repair. Thank you, Commissioners, and happy holidays. Donald Kress from the Department of Planning and Development. I'll be presenting the next two items. Both these items have ordinances prepared by the City Attorney's Office. Item 26B is Darling's first edition of zone change. You may recognize this property. It was a longtime convenience store here and a couple other things in Fargo. This is the former Agassiz School, now used for several Fargo Public Schools. Projects and operations are conducted there, University Drive, 8th Avenue South. This property has got two zones on it. Just one of those things that happens sometimes. It ends up partly zoned LC Limited Commercial and partly zoned MR2. To sort out that situation, the applicant has requested that it be properly zoned to MR2. This property is owned by Fraser Limited. They own this property here and this property. They own all these. And that MR2, as we see from the zoning map, would be consistent with the zoning that they have, as well as the types of uses there. Their use is considered a community service use, which is allowed by right in the MR2 zone. The property looks like this as of this morning. There is some construction going on there as they're working on building a new building that is intended to be offices and for a support facility for their overall operation. We have the applicant's representatives, I believe John Lowry of Lowry Engineering, Phil Stahl of Stahl Architects, and Sandra Leyland of Fraser with us tonight virtually, and there may also be other testifiers in the commission room. Again, just a zone change here to get that all under one zone. The Planning Commission's recommendation is stated in the staff report and shown on your screen. That concludes staff's presentation. Thank you, Commissioners.
Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this, or people that are virtual, do you want to make any comments? Is there anybody public want to speak?
This is John Lowry of Lowry Engineering.
Yes.
And I am in attendance virtually to answer any questions or concerns that you may have. Thank you.
Commissioners, any questions or concerns? Preston.
I just had a question about the meetings with the neighborhood. I apologize, I didn't hear exactly who is on the phone. Is it?
Lowry.
It's John Lowry from Lowry Engineering, ma'am.
Okay. So I don't know if this is a question for him or for the individual from Fraser, but just a question about the neighborhood meetings and whether there were some that happened.
Yeah. Phil, if you want to speak to that, or
Sandy? Sandra?
Donald, can you speak to that?
The planning department did not conduct any meetings specifically with the neighborhood. I believe this is Maggie Swire's case. It's not I didn't work this case myself. I know that there were some neighborhood comments that were at the planning commission there, and I think that Mr. Lowry and the other representatives from the project did explain that this is not another housing unit. Even though it's zoned MR2, this building is not going to be another housing unit. As the letters in your packet indicate, there were some concerns about activities that the neighbors believe were conducted by residents at the Fraser facility, which is really outside of the land use question that's before us. I know Maggie did have some contact with those neighbors, but I don't believe planning organized any formal meetings with the neighborhood.
Yeah, if I could just make a statement. You're entirely right. It's outside this zoning request, but sounds like it might be a really good idea for Fraser to sit down with the neighborhood.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's there used to be a convenience store there, so this is just going to be office space and help support the Fraser mission?
That's correct, Mr. Lowry, isn't it?
that's correct. Yep. Additional space for additional staff, which will help alleviate the neighbors' concerns.
Very good. Mr. Strand.
Thank you. I just have a basic question. If the picture you showed, there's construction ongoing there, would that construction project have been contingent upon this approval?
Yes, sir. When that does occasionally happen. So what we call it is they take that at their own risk. It is built to the MR2 standard, so it is built to the more restrictive standard, and it's designed to that. And so, you know, it would fit on there anyway, but ideally they do take a slight risk in starting that early. I think they were trying to get just a little ahead on construction. Mr. Lowry, do you have any comment on the timing of that?
No, with frost setting in, I think that played a part into it. And I think the key point is, just as you said, Donald, that we did adhere to the more restrictive standard to limit the risk that was there.
And just to continue, I'm not opposed to this project, but I don't appreciate it when we get ahead of the cart. You know, when we put the horse before, the cart before the horse. I believe when you have a public hearing, you should let the public have their say and let the people hear the concerns and then vote on it and then move forward with your construction project. In my 5 years, this is the second time I've seen this. And this isn't egregious, but I think as us guiding people going forward, I'd appreciate they'd wait till the public hearings have been had and the public has their say. Otherwise, it looks like it doesn't matter what we do.
Yes, sir, I understand.
Any other comments or questions? I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
I just have one
Go
more
ahead,
question. if
Commissioner
I can.
Preston.
So, Donald, what is the communication from the planning staff in regards to Commissioner Strand's earlier question? I mean, are the developers or the property owners just told, well, go ahead, it's at your risk? What's the message that's given to them?
Again, this was not my case originally.
Nicole's coming up to save
Oh,
you.
okay, there you go, thank you. Hand it off to the director then.
There's a couple things. One, and maybe Mr. Lowry can speak to this, but if the zoning was denied, they would have two choices: to occupy the building under a MR2 use that's allowed by right, or remove the foundation and start again. And I believe that was all explicitly described. I think with this, I don't want to use COVID-19 as an excuse, but with the expanding social service demands, that was part of their plea to the planning department. But in answer to Commissioner Preston's comment, this case did rise to the level of my involvement in making sure that they had affirmation and understood the risk at hand. And we have a letter in our file that relieves staff and the city's obligation if they were denied.
Well, I think Commissioner Strand's point is that oftentimes the public likes to be informed, then they would have known what's going in there, they know it's safe then, but not knowing that, a variety of things could have gone in that space, and it just makes more sense to follow that. So I would also affirm that we should try to follow the regular routine pattern that we do, and then our neighborhoods are better informed.
Yes, sir.
Roll call vote, please.
Preston,
Aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Strand,
Yes.
Pipcorn,
Aye.
Mahoney,
Aye. Donald Crest, zoning change to establish Oak Grove Neighborhood Historic Overlay District on blocks 29, 30, 39, 40, and 41. Kenny and DeWitt's second edition, blocks 1, 2, 3, Oak Grove edition, blocks 2, 3, 4, Lindsay's edition, located in an area roughly bounded on the north by 8th Avenue North, east by Short Street North, south by 6th Avenue North, and some areas further south towards the Red River, and the west between 1st and 2nd Avenue, or Streets North. Approval recommended by Planning Commission and the first reading of the rezoning. Donald Crest to explain.
Thank you, Mayor Mahoney. So as the mayor stated, this is a historic overlay district. We have several of these in the city already. As you may know, we have 7 of them. This project site is located in the Oak Grove neighborhood as shown on the map here. Here's the Red River, here's the ball fields here, and the Oak Grove High School here. It includes 175 properties. I don't have any on-the-ground photos because the aerial photo shows it best. There's largely residential zoning in there with one little piece of commercial right down there. The historic overlay is not a zone by itself, commissioners, but applies a historic overlay to the base zoning districts, which are not changing. So those zone districts there don't change. This proposed overlay was reviewed by the Historic Preservation Commission and recommended for approval by them, as well as by the Planning Commission. The development standards of the Historic Overlay District are stated in the ordinance that was included in your packet. You'll note that ordinance is about 23 pages long, and there's there are the development standards plus some additional information there related to that. And again, this was a neighborhood-initiated historic district. The city staff did not initiate the neighborhood deed. The applicant, Carol Pearson of the Oak Grove neighborhood, is with us virtually tonight and may wish to address the commission. There, I believe, are also 2 other testifiers on the phone, and there may be 1 more in person as well. There again is the boundary of the district there, just a little more black and white. Commissioners, you received some additional letters that came to us after the commission packet was published. Those were sent out Thursday by Megan Alshaug, who's the case planner for this, and then today by me, who's taken over for this evening's presentation here. Again, from neighborhoods, there were a few in support and 1 in opposition. The Planning Commission's recommendation is stated in your staff report. It's shown on the screen. That concludes staff's presentation, and again, we do have some testifiers virtually.
So I first have as testifier Paul Gleal. He's virtual, I believe. Paul?
Actually, Paul will have you. Paul, you can go ahead.
Yes, you. Paul? He's not on. Malcolm? Malcolm? Are you on?
I am here. Is Paul speaking?
Paul's not speaking. You can go ahead.
Okay, this is Malcolm Butler, and I live at 73 South Terrace North. I've been here 4 decades now, and in that time, the Oak Grove neighborhood has changed radically. Of the 95 homes that were here, and at least on the eastern part of the Oak Grove neighborhood on the peninsula in 1980.
Hello, this is Paul Guy. I serve on
we're competing here.
the Historic Preservation Commission.
Paul, I'll have you stop for a minute. Malcolm's talking right now.
Paul
You can
speaking
speak
now?
when he's done. Go ahead, Malcolm.
So I will continue, Butler.
Yes, please.
Hello.
You can go ahead.
What did you say there?
Mr. Butler would go ahead now, and then we'll have Paul speak after you.
Okay, here I go. So, 73 South Terrace North, and I've been here 4 decades, and have seen the neighborhood change quite a bit. Of the houses that were here at the eastern end of the proposed HOD and on the peninsula, the South and North Terrace area, there were 95 homes, and over half of them are now gone. A couple were replaced by a condo. Some went to westward expansion of Oak Grove School in the 90s, and many, many more to flood mitigation buyouts over these last couple of decades. So it's really a change in scope of the neighborhood, not the character of the neighborhood or the loyalty of the surviving residents. A decade ago, neighborhood, at least this eastern portion, was designated nationally as the Oak Grove Historic Residential Neighborhood, which was a great honor, but it provides no protection against the kind of developmental onslaught that we're concerned with these days. So we've gained flood protection, we're gaining more, but I think that is from property speculation. And we've all seen the cycle of rental property deterioration, demolition, infill with contemporary housing that is sure to change the character of the neighborhood. This has always been a space-limited location for over a century. People don't have 3-stall garages here. You know, we live with the space that we have, and we've adapted to the setting. So as we've gained flood protection, we're also becoming increasingly space-limited. So I don't want to see the surviving Oak Grove neighborhood whittled down to accommodate expanded multi-unit housing and associated parking. And I think the HOD is our best tool to protect what we all love here. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul, now we're ready for you. Paul, are you there? We're ready for you.
Can I start?
Yes, go ahead.
My name is Paul Gly. I serve on the Historic Preservation Commission. I speak because a letter opposing the Oak Grove Historic Overlay District specifically mentions my name, and it misconstrues my remarks. I would like to correct the record. There's a letter that says I compared the proposed Oak Grove Historic Overlay District to South Fargo Homeowners Associations, And they cite such associations as going after their residents for dues or excessive fining as a means of fundraising or harassment. But a historic overlay district is not a homeowners association. It has no dues. There is no fundraising. The letter says that an overlay district is complaint-driven, but it is not. The Historic Preservation Commission is guided by a set of duly adopted design standards for a district, which come into play only as part of the city's building permit process. My actual comment was that the city of Fargo has already established 7 historic overlay districts, and they have proved successful in helping to enhance the city's core neighborhoods. In fact, Historic Preservation Commission meeting minutes back for many years are available on the city's website for anyone's review, and I suggest that these minutes do not show any strife imposed by the Historic Preservation Commission on homeowners in the 7 historic overlay districts. I continue to support this designation for the benefit of the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one other speaker. Carol, are you on? Did you want to say anything?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'll just be brief to say, as liaison for our neighborhood HOD working group, I just want to say that I'm very thankful for the unanimous approval by the HPC and the Planning Commission and the recommendation to approve from the Planning Department. I'm also grateful for all the help from our working HOD group and others. And I believe that our Oak Grove neighborhood is unique and has developed this sense of place over its 100+ years that is irreplaceable. It is my hope and belief that the Oak Grove property owners will benefit from the stability and the quality of life that a historic overlay helps to provide a neighborhood. And I thank you for your consideration. Thanks.
Thank you. If there's no other public that wishes to speak, we'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
Sir, I believe there is one more, sir.
Is there one more? Oh, I'm sorry. Come to the mic. Tell your name, please.
Hello, my name is Matt Ramsett. I am a part of this overlay district and I am opposed to it. First off, I'd like to thank the planning department, city auditors, and Commissioner Preston, because I was only able to really try to act on this today, and they were very open and available in their schedule, so I appreciate their time. To Paul Greer, I do not mean to in any way attack your character if you took it as such. There was a mention in the video on November 17th where there was a comparison in at least maintaining property values between an HOA of the South Fargo neighborhoods and what a historic overlay district can do. So my viewpoint on the people who are working on this is that they are trying to protect their community. But I don't believe that they're using the historic overlay district correctly. And I did not buy my home 2 years ago to be a part of these kind of restrictions that would incur from it. I have a letter I wrote about my personal and then how I saw it going through, but since there's a limited time, I won't go into that and I will just get to the details. A historic or overlay district, as the gentleman over there stated, is not its own district. It's an overlay into the area. It has to be applied to a historic district that's either done by a federal, state, or local. In this case, Oak Grove neighborhood got the historic residential district in 2011. That is only applying to the North and South Terrace. And that's per section 20-0305, section 1, gives the North and South Terrace the right to have the overlay district. The applicability section 2, an HO district may only be extended to an area in such areas of historic or cultural significance that is deemed appropriate and necessary to protect the larger area against the intrusion of land use and development incompatible with the specific area of historic or cultural significance. in anything I have been able to find, because I have not been engaged in this process except for a discussion meeting in December of 2018. I have not seen anything that shows that it is appropriate to extend past the initial boundary or that it is necessary to protect the Oak Grove area. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else from public wishes to speak? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve, but I have a few questions as well.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second. Okay, Arlette Preston, Commissioner?
Yeah, so could you explain to us the relationship between the historic district that was referred to, the boundaries of that versus this historic overlay district?
Ma'am, I'm going to refer that to our director. I don't know that detailed history on this project.
Donald, you must be really happy that Nicole's in the meeting tonight.
I thought Megan would do that.
Do you need the question?
Yeah, can you repeat the question?
The relationship of the historic, federal historic district and the boundaries there that were established and how that's related to the historic overlay district that we're looking at right now.
They're somewhat unrelated, and I would say actually they're very unrelated. We don't really use those as reference. This is really a neighborhood initiative to set up rules and guidelines for oversight on single-family preservation. Back, and Carol can probably explain this more, but in consulting with NDSU's architecture program and I'm failing on the name of the professor's name, but they did some assessment and analysis through the Historical Society, and which was a different activity, but that led to this initiative of an overlay.
Good. And my second question was, and I think in the phone call that I was having earlier, the question about the boundaries change, and maybe Carol, you're the best one to answer this. Was there a change in the boundaries of this overlay district at any time during the process?
Yes. Our working group included the area that is now part of the Jesse Craig development, but we were told that we couldn't include that because it had already been was already being developed and was in the process with the planning department. So that's the main change that happened with regard to the boundaries.
Okay.
One small change was we meant to include the west side of First Street, and how we initially wrote it, that west side of First Street was not included. So we went over to the alley between First and Second Street.
Okay.
But
when in the process did that happen, Carol?
The alley
The
change,
alley, yeah.
And I can
right before it went to Historic Preservation Commission, so it got postponed a month from October meeting to November meeting, because in looking at the packet, that's when the misunderstanding arose.
Okay.
Commissioner, we can give you a little more detailed answer there too. We did talk to case planner Megan Elshaug about this, and as Carol indicated, the original boundary, which was in a notice that went out prior to the HPC hearing, showed the boundary just on the east side of First Street. As she said, that was corrected. That hearing was postponed. There was never any hearing on that boundary.
Okay.
The adjusted boundary, going both sides of First Street, was included in what did go to the HPC, what went to the Planning Commission, and what is before you tonight. So that the current boundary is carried through all three of those commissions. And there was actually a second notice for the HPC hearing that explained you're getting a second notice. This was postponed because the boundary had changed. And so all the people originally noticed, which are all the people in the boundary of the historic district plus 300 feet around it, so it's a lot of notices, got both of those letters, as I understand from Ms. Elshaug.
Any other discussion? Mr. Gary?
Yeah, I'm not in general a fan of the historic overlays, and the reason is it puts on standards that are for a certain area that are above and beyond the standards of the rest of the city. And what that usually means is that it costs more to live there. So this is an affordable part of Fargo in general. And we're going to price more people out of the market by saying you have to use certain materials, for example, if you want to fix up your home. Maybe we say you can't use vinyl siding, you have to use steel. Maybe you have to use this sort of roof versus a cheaper material. Or maybe I want to build a Swedish chalet in the neighborhood, and that's not allowed because that's not part of the historic overlay. That actually happened in the Hawthorne neighborhood. Someone tried to build a Swedish chalet, and he got through a portion of the project and had to stop because others complained that it wasn't historic. It wasn't part of that look for that time period in that part of Fargo. So it's going to price people out of the market. We already have a housing problem with affordability. It adds more restrictions to people, and it treats different parts of Fargo differently than the rest of us, which I don't think is correct and something we should be striving for. I understand the goal. You want your neighborhood to look nice, but so do I. I live in the Roosevelt neighborhood, and there's no special protection for me, so why should there be for you? And if we think the special protection is valid, then why don't we do it for all of Fargo? Treat everyone the same, if that's the way we want to do things. But treating different parts of Fargo as though they're more valuable or less isn't good. Raising the cost of housing isn't good. And I think that while the stated purpose of these overlays is valid and is understandable, we all want to have our neighborhoods look nice and stay nice. I think that in many cases it goes too far, and it has negative consequences on homeowners, and that's why I'll be voting no.
Any other discussion? Commissioner Strand?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just curious, my experience with old buildings in North Dakota is there isn't much protection for them adequately, often enough. And what I've learned over time is there isn't teeth. There aren't teeth. There's no teeth. How about that? So what teeth is in this? What is there in this overlay? Because I'm all for historic districts and protections. My first question is what enforcement is there? And the second one is maybe we can, Nicole, in our neighborhood planning and our incentives, maybe we can take Commissioner Gehrig's concern and explore what we could do for incentives, people to step up the quality of their historic homes in a historic district.
I will say that's a great question for the core neighborhood plan process. And not to put Carol on the spot, but actually staff's preference was actually to complete our land development code rewrite and our core neighborhood plan rewrite our work prior to doing this historic overlay. However, the neighborhood, the Oak Grove area put so much energy and volunteer work. This has been an initiative that's in 6-7 years plus in the works. And so through coordination last summer, again, Carol and the Oak Grove neighborhood made this as an application, and we're taking this as an application like we would any applications. But from a staff initiated, all of our other historic overlays have been staff initiated as an initiative that started in the early 2000s as a way of neighborhood preservation in relationship to the school issue, and as a way of stabilizing, as a tool for stabilizing single-family neighborhoods. Obviously, stabilizing single-family neighborhoods in the core neighborhood plan is one of our primary goals that's coming out as a recommendation, and so I think you're going to see other recommendations. And long story short, in an answer to your question, there is not a whole lot of teeth in the historic overlay district. I would say staff is not a huge fan of them, but we understand their importance of them and why there's a push for them. And but in terms of when they get a permit at a single family house, how that's administrated through the land development code, it does get a little clunky between the planning department and the building inspections office, because we don't, at the planning department we do not permit single family houses. That would be Bruce Charleston's office. And so what has basically occurred is the Historic Preservation Commission which is an amazing commission and amazing volunteers and very knowledgeable people. And what they end up doing is being guidance and advisory to people building in these neighborhoods. And so it has actually been customized over the years to be a fantastic tool for people who want to answer questions and learn about historic buildings and what are the right technical tools, and you got really awesome technical experts on the Historic Preservation Commission. And I would encourage anybody to come to a Historic Preservation Commission to watch them in action. It is quite amazing, and they become really advisory and get really technical. But I think if Paul was still on the line, you would be hard pressed to say it adds cost to the building. It's actually more about saving, doing smart improvements to the building that are in keeping with that era of that house. And there's a lot of knowledge and expertise that goes into that. I mean, people get doctorate degrees on this stuff. And so, so that's really where it becomes. It's not really enforced right now. And in fact, the Historic Preservation Commission will advise, they'll give a permit, certificate. But at that point, the builder then has a relationship with inspections, and that gets coordinated that way.
Thank you.
For the money issue, Commissioner Strand, we did approve these tax exempts just a little bit earlier, so many people would be able to do a 5-year tax exemption on improvements. So, any other discussion or questions? The public hearing is closed. Sorry.
Okay.
We have a motion on it, so I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Roll call vote, please.
Preston,
Aye.
Strand,
Yes.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Mahoney, Gary,
No.
Mahoney,
Aye.
She knew my vote.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Thank you, Donald. Next item is hearing on dangerous building located at 1021 10th Street North. This is going to be continued to Monday, January 11th at 5:15. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Preston,
Aye.
Strand,
Yes.
Mahoney.
Okay. Item 27, recommendation for appointments to the Sustainability and Resiliency Committee and to solicit the public to serve as at-large appointees. Bruce Grubb to explain.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. This item is related to a restart, for lack of a better term, of the former Renewable Energy and Conservation Committee, which was originally appointed back in 2005. There were 8 members appointed by the commission at that time, and 4 of the members are no longer with the city. So the committee has been admittedly somewhat dormant for a period. About a year ago, Commissioner Strand hosted a climate change town hall meeting in these chambers, and the meeting was well attended, and the commissioner was seeking public comments around the topic of climate change. At the conclusion of the town hall, the commissioner asked our administrative staff to put together a summary of the comments that were received. So we reviewed the tape and did that, and that's been included as Exhibit A to my cover memo. Another outcome of the town hall was the thought of preparing some sort of white paper summary about things that the city has done over the years with regard to this topic. And we thought that that might serve as a good starting point as we restart that committee and decide where we might want to go from here. The white paper has been included as Exhibit B to my cover memo, and I did give an informational presentation to the City Commission back on November 13th. One other thing we did was we held an internal staff meeting back in August to review the white paper. Commissioner Strand participated in that meeting. The staff member participation was based on previous staff experience with items contained in the white paper. And so at the conclusion of that review meeting, everybody felt like it might be a good idea to give an informational presentation to the commission because the white paper ended up being 10 pages long. So there's kind of a history of things. I did organize the white paper under categories, and I have those shown on this screen: climate resiliency, renewable energy, emissions reductions, energy efficiency, and environmental stewardship. Obviously, there's more that can be done, but you might be surprised at what's been done previously. Some of the work contained in the white paper dates back to the early 90s, so we've been pursuing opportunities for the past 30 years or so. So, moving right along, I have a shortened presentation. I'm not going to give you the full 40 minutes that I did on November 13th, so I'm sorry about that. But under the category of climate resiliency, we have the FM Area Diversion Project, which you've heard a lot about, and that is a flood resiliency measure. We have the Red River Valley Water Supply Project. That is our long-term drought resiliency measure. And then we have our drought management plan, which is our near-term drought resiliency measure. Under the category of renewable energy, one that we're really proud of, and Mr. Jensen mentioned earlier, we have the landfill gas collection and reuse system. That dates back to 2001. Kind of proud that, to my knowledge, we're still the only landfill in the state of North Dakota, or this region for that matter, that collects and reuses landfill gas. Also at the landfill, when we constructed our big transfer station out there, we included a bank of solar panels along the south roof line of that building. And then at the same time, we also installed a commercial wind turbine at the landfill as well. And the energy produced off those two features get used directly at the landfill on a daily basis. The picture to the left is an EV charging station from out at the CVB. We will be installing one of those in the west parking lot of City Hall this spring, and that is a project that is 100% grant funded through the VW settlement program. At the wastewater treatment plant, this is another big one, wastewater reuse for ethanol production. This one dates back to 2008, and since we started that, we've provided nearly 4 billion gallons of reclaimed wastewater that we sent out to produce ethanol. The central garage fuel blending station, I believe that was 2010 when those were installed, and those allow us to blend standard gasoline and diesel with ethanol and biodiesel. We also have geothermal heating systems at our ground storage reservoir and on two very large sanitary sewer lift stations, 60 and 61. Down in the lower right, we did participate with Cass County Electric, partnered on a community solar garden, and that is located on the same grounds of our ground storage reservoir. Similar to the landfill, out at the wastewater treatment plant, we use an anaerobic digestion process that produces gas. We collect that gas and reuse that on site. And then on the right-hand portion of this screen, the recently completed ROCO Smart Energy Ramp project. Under the emissions reductions category, we've introduced hybrid technology into our metropolitan area transit system. So those buses use a combination of battery and diesel fuel. We've also included some hybrid technology into our vehicle fleet in terms of hybrid SUVs. Similarly, those use battery power in a combination with gasoline. Again, the landfill gas collection and reuse system gets a nod also under emissions reductions because it single-handedly goes a long way into reducing the city's carbon footprint. Recycling and waste diversion, I've got it explained in the white paper in your packet, but that also aids in the reduction of emissions. And then on the right-hand side of the screen, soon to come, a low emissions fire truck, and that is being purchased with a 50% grant through the VW settlement program. Under the energy efficiency category, right-hand portion of the slide, City Hall was constructed with many energy efficient features. Upper left, main library next year will be converting its lighting system over to LED. Central garage LED lighting conversion, that is 100% complete. This is one that I was really surprised about, but we've converted all of our traffic signals to LED lighting. We're in the process of converting our street light system over to LED lighting. I think right now we've got about 3,200 of the 14,000 completed, and we're on a pace of about 500 per year. The water treatment plant expansion that was just completed, obviously, we included many energy efficient features there. Similarly, the wastewater treatment plant expansion that's underway as we speak, including similar energy efficient features there. Something that most people don't know about, variable frequency drives. We've started to include those on all of our sanitary sewer lift stations. We have 69 of those, and stormwater lift stations, we have 81 of those. And they control the speed of pumps, so use far less energy. Down below, nearly all of our emergency generators in town are on something called load shedding programs with XL Energy and Cass County Electric. And those are load shedding for both electricity and natural gas. Upper right, the inspections department adopted the 2018 International Energy Conservation Code, and that applies to all residential and commercial buildings in Fargo. And then soon next year, with the help of our reform committee, we'd like to start an energy load profile study on city facilities to try to figure out what the base load of energy usage is. Under the environmental stewardship category, again, we've got the wastewater reuse for ethanol production because that is an environmentally friendly project. Rainwater harvesting, lower left, we utilize rainwater harvesting systems at our metropolitan area transit garage and at the water treatment plant expansion. Upper right, main library green rooflets. This was a new one to me, but these were installed when the main library was constructed in an effort to have that facility LEED certified. And then down below, the Fargo project, which is a combined regional stormwater pond and a community ecological garden. Landfill yard waste composting, that dates back to the early 90s, as does our household hazardous waste and electronics recycling facility. That was built in an effort to keep hazardous materials out of the city landfill. We've got our curbside recycling program for single-family residential homes, and we've got a drop site recycling program for multifamily residents and businesses. Upper right, the wastewater utility administers a sump pump program, and down below, the lower right, planning administers an energy efficiency and conservation block grant program. That's just a picture of an asphalt recycler, which is our most recent purchase through that program. Also, the Go 2030 comprehensive plan, which includes principles of energy conservation, and then the downtown in focus strategic plan that has recommendations for multimodal transportation and also promotes green infrastructure principles. And so that's a quick presentation on the white paper. And in my cover letter, I've included suggestions for appointments to the new Sustainability and Resiliency Committee. They are John Strand, City Commissioner, to serve as committee chair. Tim Mahoney, Mayor. Bruce Grubb, City Administrator. Nicole Crutchfield, Director of Planning and Development. Brenda Derrig, our City Engineer. Ben Dow, our Public Works Director. Brock Morrison, Director of Facilities Management, and Bruce Tarlson, our Building Inspections Director. And then I'm also suggesting 3 public at-large members. I'm suggesting that we go through a citywide solicitation for statements of interest, similar process that we went through in putting together our selection committee for police chief. I've also proposed some ex officio members, a representative from XL Energy, Cass County Electric, the Fargo Park District, and the Fargo School District. And I've spoken with all of those to serve as ex officios, and they're happy to do so. So the suggested motion in front of you tonight is to approve the suggested appointments to serve as members of a Sustainability and Resiliency Committee and approve a public process for the selection of 3 public at-large members. So thank you for your time. More than happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions by the commissioners? Commissioner Garrick.
Not so much a question as a statement. I don't think that people in the city of Fargo know how much we do, and you guys do a great job in utilities. And as liaison to the utilities, I love talking about these things because it always surprises people about all the things that we do. So from the landfill to the water plant, sewer plant, and all the extra things you just spoke of, I think we do a fantastic job. Things that other cities haven't even fathomed doing, we have made happen. And that's why I support these things like this so much, is because it's not a feel-good thing that we're doing. we actually save and make money doing these things, selling water to the ethanol plants, selling selling gas to run boilers for businesses here in Fargo. These things actually make money. Not all of them make money, I guess. And those are the things I want to shed and focus on the things that we do really well. So I'm a big supporter of these things. I think that once we compress the natural gas, we can get away from the hybrid buses, which actually cost more at the end of the day than a diesel bus does. But if we can use the energy that we're producing, we can again save and make money in doing that. So I'm a big supporter of this. I'm glad you gave that presentation. I hope that people of Fargo can look at this and recognize all the things that we're doing, and then this committee can build on that progress. Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Strand?
Mayor, I make the recommended motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Bruce, that was an excellent presentation. We especially like your Christmas tie, but you did a great job at this, and I know this has been a passion of yours since you were on utilities years ago. Many of these things have happened, but congratulations to everybody who's worked hard on this. Commissioner Strand.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Bruce Grubb, I'd like to also commend you and your department's heads and all of the people throughout the city who do so much work that we don't always see. This is below the radar often, and it's not until we collect it and put it before us as a total presentation we realize how far-reaching it is. There's folks in our community who are very involved in the issues of climate action and energy and resiliency and efficiencies, and I look forward to us welcoming them to the table, even if they're not the official designated at-large committee members. We have a lot of room for input and learning and partnering going forward. The last comment I'd like to make is we have people asking us to declare a climate emergency routinely, and there are cities across the country declaring a climate emergency routinely. I'm not as worried about the politics of declaring a climate emergency as the action that reflects that you're doing the right thing and that you're being responsible and prudent and caring for your environment. So let's do this. I'm not going to advance that topic at this point in time to declare a climate emergency, but let's let the proof be in the pudding that the results we get show that we care about the climate, we care about efficiencies, we can care about the environment, and that we care about savings and so on. So I'm really proud of Fargo right now, and I'd like to also go back and commend Mike Williams when he was city commissioner for being at the forefront of these efforts, and his leadership still continues these today with the work you're furthering and that we're furthering.
Thank you. Any other comments? Commissioner Preston?
Mr. Chairman, if I could just ask a question. Since this isn't ordinance-supported kind of committee, will the meetings be televised? Will the agenda be published? All of the routine, in the sake of transparency, that we've heard a little comment about tonight.
Yes, they will, Commissioner, because it's a committee appointed by action of the City Commission. They'll all be televised public meetings in this room with agendas posted, minutes taken, and those sorts of things. So the answer is yes.
Roll call vote, please.
Strand?
Yes.
Preston?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Gary?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 28, COVID-19 update. Desi Fleming, are you able to speak?
I am able to speak. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I was just going to give a really brief overview just of kind of where we're at right now, and then you have some subtopics to hear as well. So I did send over a few slides, if Greg can pull those up, just to kind of show our numbers a little bit. COVID cases in the state as well as Cass County continue to decrease. As of today's results, Cass County has 377 active cases. This graph, as you can see, also marks when the state and local mask mandates were initiated, showing a subsequent continuous decrease in cases. So that did play a strong role, along with our other mitigation efforts, in decreasing our case counts. Next slide, the positivity rate also continues to decrease, with Cass County's positivity rate remaining slightly above the state at this point. Hospitalizations in our area also continued to decline. Locally over the weekend, the discharge numbers were actually higher than the admission numbers, which is reflective of a true reduction in case numbers. Death numbers for Cass County are at 164, with the state total being 1,270. This is our risk assessment that the state has been using. Active cases are now in the moderate risk yellow category, along with the test positivity rate. At this time, of course, the governor has maintained all the counties within North Dakota in the high risk orange category, so we'll see if that changes at any point. Also wanted to just provide a quick vaccine update. Fargo Cass Public Health has been allocated only 360 doses so far from the North Dakota Department of Health. We're responsible for 3,000 individuals in phase 1A and 1,300 in phase 1B. So these lists continue to grow as more outreach is done. There were some providers that didn't sign up as providers and they just found out about things. So they're kind of reaching out to us as they want to be added to the list of vaccinations. So this is going to take patience on everyone's part. So we ask for that. We've had many phone calls from agencies and community members lobbying for higher priority groups. And as an enrolled provider for the vaccine, we are expected to, and we will follow the state's recommendations and guidance. The priorities were developed by the ethics committee at the state using ACIP recommendations. We're working with our community partners so that we can strategically vaccinate our community in an ethical and efficient manner. We're hopeful that vaccine will become more readily available in the months ahead. And again, encourage everyone who's able to be vaccinated to do so when their priority group is up. Any questions for me, I would be happy to answer.
So we may turn to yellow sometime as the governor looks over the statistics across the state. They look pretty good. And I think for the public, please don't call public health to change or get your vaccine early, because we follow the ethics committee's rules, and our frontline people we want to have vaccinated. So police and fire need to be vaccinated, our nurses, our doctors, let them get vaccinated first, and your time will come. As soon as we get the vaccine, we will distribute it as fast as we can. I have, going on to the police department, Chief Zabowski.
Good evening, Commissioners. Just to give you a little overview, last reporting period, our department conducted 40 proactive business establishment compliance checks. And all but two of those, well, actually all but one of those, we had no violations. We do have a repeat business that has resulted in 3 reports to the Liquor Control Board, and another one that had generated a prior Liquor Control Board report, but as of this last week, made a 180-degree turn in their process and has implemented everything from masks to social distancing. So I think they've, which is good. It's kind of the compliance that we're looking for. In total, since November 16th, our department has conducted 209 business compliance checks. We're seeing 90% no violations. Of that 10%, 17 instances we were able to successfully educate and gain voluntary compliance. And the other 4, as I've previously described, resulted in reports to the Liquor Control Board. So they will get that information at the January meeting, and they can discuss that, and I'll provide some additional background to them as well. But in at least one of those cases, we now have full compliance from the business, so that's positive. That's all I have, absent any questions.
Any questions? Thank you, Chief. Good work. Business Assistant Program. Mike's got good news for us, right, Mike? Piles of money coming in.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I'll just provide a brief update this evening. First, on the City Business Assistance Program, I want to provide a brief update on our timing. We will meet the Commission's January 1, 2021 implementation deadline, and we will actually have a communication out to our qualifying restaurants and bars this week. They will receive a written piece of communication from us, and then also today we put up a news release out to the public and then up on our city website as well, making the announcement. So these 440 some businesses that are licensed as restaurants and bars should be seeing something from us in the mail shortly. And I just again want to thank, as I did 2 weeks ago, really the efforts of our staff in trying to get this put together in relatively short order over the last month and out the door. We think this will deliver some meaningful relief to our businesses, and we're very proud that we're able to do that. I also want to report very briefly on the COVID relief bill signed by the president last evening. This is the $900 billion relief bill that companions the $1.4 trillion government operations funding bill. The latter, which keeps the government on without interruption and does result in no partial or full government shutdown yet this year in the federal fiscal year. So let me talk a little briefly about what the COVID relief bill will look like for our businesses. What we're referring this to as is the Paycheck Protection Program number 2, or PPP 2. This is $284.5 billion in new funds that will be administered by the SBA to guarantee both first and second business loans to those qualifying entities. And what are we talking about? We're talking about sole proprietors. We're talking about small mom and pop shops. We're talking about employers less than 500 employees, as well as nonprofit organizations. So we're talking about a rather large segment of economic activity in the country. And in this case, we're also going to have several businesses that will receive second loans, forgivable loans, from the SBA. These are individuals and businesses that had received loans in March and April of 2020, and they have exhausted these dollars. They don't have any funds left. And so after they've fully expended those first loans, they're going to qualify again to get back in on this program. So as I mentioned earlier, this is going to be about smaller employers and really those individuals that are going to be needing that assistance to meet payroll and to keep their employees. So this is going to be a really important program to see hit the street here very, very shortly. There's also going to be $20 billion out of that COVID relief package that's going to go to the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. Again, also forgivable loans. This is going to focus primarily on working capital and operating capital to allow these businesses to stay afloat. So not only protecting the employees, but also protecting the core functions of the businesses so that they are able to see their payrolls through the end of the year. I also want to make one special note, and this is one we're going to spend a little bit of time on. The bill outlines $15 billion being set aside for theaters, museums, zoos, and other live event venues. And so we want to take a look at this more carefully to try to understand what that could mean for our both nonprofit and for-profit entities in the community that are in that space and are doing things every day in that area. That is new in this PPP 2. Treasury and SBA are going to work to get these programs stood up as quickly as possible. I was reading some news clips this afternoon, and if you go to the SBA website, for example, right now, you don't see the updated information. You see the old information from earlier in the summer. And so this is going to take some time. I was reading a news clip that said it's going to take some time not only for them to get the program stood up, but then to get an application process out to the public so these businesses have the opportunity to apply for this assistance. So what our next steps are going to look like are this. Number one, we're going to get the implementation of the city program up and going. Again, this communication out the door this week. We're also going to be working with the EDC and the Chamber and their regional task force that they have stood up. A new survey instrument that will be distributed in January that they are working on right now to try ascertain what it is the businesses are going to be looking for and where some additional help may be needed in the future. And then after that, we're also going to identify what other kind of gaps may be present after this federal relief hits the street and gets cycled through the community, not only in Fargo, but around the state of North Dakota. What additional business assistance gaps may exist? So as we talk about a phase 2 with our business assistance program, if applicable, what that relief could look like, what may still be needed at that point, or if the federal relief, in fact, will solve for many of the problems that are remaining in retail, in museums, in art galleries, et cetera, those types of sectors of the economy that were left out of PPP in the first go-around. So that's just a brief update on the federal relief package. We're going to continue to track and monitor that very carefully and spend some time on that with our partners outside of the organization. So,
Any questions, commissioners? Commissioner Preston?
And Michael, do you know if the application process for this round is going to be similar to the first round? It was very difficult and I'm thinking the new American businesses that don't have ready access to a banker or an attorney, how difficult it was for them?
That's a great question, Commissioner. And at this stage, we don't know either for the EIDL or PPP what that will look like. I did read something that they do want to spend some time with those advisors, those business advisors, the accountants and the attorneys that work with these small businesses. But that's all I read was that they need to stand it up. Given that the bill was just signed last evening at about 8:30 Central, Treasury and SBA didn't have a lot today about what they intend to do and what their roadmap looks like over the next couple of weeks. But as soon as I see something more on that, I'll be sure to share that as well.
If I could do one
Go
more
ahead.
follow-up. So are there any resources inside the community through EDC, through the chamber, through the city to help those smaller mom and pop businesses?
Yeah, that's going to be a conversation topic that we have with the EDC and the chamber. That task force, they did a lot of work earlier in the spring and in early summer, and then they largely went dormant while they let the money cycle through the community. And so I'm going to ask that question. They did a nice job encouraging people to talk to their lenders and talk to their advisors, but I want to try to understand and better understand for the future what it is they have for tools, and if there are some lessons learned that they had from this first wave in PPP1 that can help us make a better process for PPP2. I want to hear more about that, and if I learn some more, I'll certainly share that with the commissioners in future updates at the commission meetings. You bet.
Any other questions? Commissioner Strand.
Thank you, Mayor. Michael, this isn't a question, but it's just something to note. We're of course hearing about the people who are having challenges and problems, and we're trying very hard to be aware of the needs of the people we serve. But in the process, let's not lose sight of successes too. When this is all done, we'll have some good stories to tell of things that went well, things that turned businesses around, things that helped them stay alive when they might otherwise not have survived. So that's really important to have both of these metrics in front of us so we can continually focus on needs and, on the other hand, acknowledge our successes because they're immense.
That's great.
Any other comments or questions of Mike? Thanks. And now we have Jim Gilmore to give the last item on the agenda. It's a recommendation for the purchase of the property at 501 Main Avenue.
Yes, the city would actually be selling this property to a private development group. As part of the financing plan for the mercantile parking garage, it included the city selling this property to provide some of the resources for that. You later, this past fall, approved a resolution authorizing the sale of the property. It was advertised, 4 proposals were received. We assembled a group to take a look at the proposals, which included Mayor and Commissioner Pepcorn, who's on both Finance and the Parking Commission. It was a unanimous recommendation of the review group that the proposal from FI Salter and JLG was the best proposal for this property. Just some key points to this recommendation: the purchase, they would purchase it for $505,000. The proposal would include a mix of housing ranging from small studio apartments within the first floors 3 through 5 to condos located on the top floor. This development will also make use of the main avenue or the Island Park's parking ramp across the street. I estimate probably 50, maybe up to 90 parking spots would be used in that facility. The developer is not only acquiring the city property, but also has an agreement to acquire a portion of the Lake Agassiz Regional Council parking lot located just to the east, which allows them to, expand the site and have a $21 million development. I think you see a couple of these pictures, the project's high quality design. When we advertise for the proposals, any incentives would be limited to the 5-year Renaissance Zone program. Go back here. One kind of remaining issue is the exit onto Broadway. Engineering has some concerns with it being at that location, so the developer is willing to either line it up with the driveway to the Park District parking lot or possibly eliminate that. That's the final detail that we'll work on. We would try to work with the developer to create a hawk crossing, sort of a pedestrian crossing light similar to what we would have at the Fargo Dome. And we're also looking at trying to incorporate some public art. That's not necessarily what would be built there, but within that plaza. Where we're at this point is we're going to be asking you to really accept this offer, but then work on the final details of the development agreement. We actually have to plat this property so we get the boundaries exact. Portion of our property extends actually into Main Avenue, and so that would need to be platted before it could be developed. Maybe a couple comments on the overall proposal. I think this works well with the downtown in focus plan and also the Main Avenue reconstruction project. When Main Avenue was rebuilt, it was hoped that we would have this type of development that would locate along Main Avenue, since it would be less of a busy street. It fits with the in focus plan. It's main floor commercial uses. It brings housing downtown. It's good design. It has public art. It has a lot of things we're looking for. On the financial side, the city would benefit really three ways: the sale of the property for $505,000, the parking income, what we anticipate would be about $35,000 a year, additional income into the parking fund, and a $21 million development will pay significant property taxes in the future. We have online Sandy Hoff from FI Salter. Maybe you can, Sandy, if you would, just tell us a little bit about your company, what other things you've done, and why you're interested in Fargo in this particular proposal. Sandy.
Certainly. Commissioners, good evening. It is truly a pleasure to be with you. I'm Sandy Hoff with FI Salter, stationed out of Duluth. I have to say that I have long envied the robust economic development attitude of your wonderful city in Fargo and the robust economy. And so when I had the opportunity to partner with JLG Architects in Fargo, such a respected firm, to do a development at the gateway to your downtown, I jumped at the chance. So I'm truly honored to have this opportunity, and I hope you accept our proposal. I have a commercial real estate firm, along with a number of other firms here in Duluth. And we do development work, appraisal work, management, and leasing. And so we've done some neat projects here in Duluth. Hopefully you've all stopped at the Pier B Resort Hotel on our waterfront. Is one of our projects that we completed 4 years ago, and it's been a tremendous success. And so I'm honored to partner with JLG Architects, one of your premier companies in town, and bring forward this wonderful development to your community.
Thank you, Sandy. It's always nice to hear nice comments about our community, but I know you envied Fargo versus Duluth, so I'm glad you're coming into our market. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a wonderful spot. Looking forward to it.
Very good. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Commissioner Gary.
And I agree with you, Jim. I think it will be a fantastic new building in Maine that will complement what we're already doing down there. I want to be sure of one thing. Are you saying they're not eligible for incentives other than the Renaissance Zone, or that way they probably wouldn't be accepted if they were asked for?
We had included in the request for offers stated that we would not provide any incentives in addition or except for the Renaissance Zone, and that would be built into the development agreement where they would agree not to even apply for any.
And Sandy, you're on board with that?
I'm on board with that, yes.
Okay, so we're getting development in downtown Fargo without incentives. That's great. Thank you.
So you can vote for it.
Yes, I can.
Any other discussion? Commissioner Strand.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm curious, and I don't know the answer, so I'll ask. Some years ago, I remember Mayor Wallaker voted against a project right next to the railroad track because of the concern about safety. And back at that time, we had something like 77 oil trains a day going through our downtown. I'm just ballparking it. I don't know these numbers anymore. I don't know the safety issues relative to oil trains through town. I know I personally, in my official capacity, have multiple times not had a difficult time even getting answers as to who has the authority to regulate train speeds through town. And so I would suggest we as a city make sure we don't overlook this safety issue, make sure that it's addressed with the pipeline. Maybe there isn't the need for oil trains, maybe there is. I don't know these numbers, but we'd be remiss not to be on top of that question of safety when we're allowing development right next to a track that used to be a concern and maybe still is.
I mean, I've done a little bit of research on, some of these oil train accidents, such as the one near Castleton, and just a few of the articles I've read is that when you have a derailment and the train is going, say, 30 miles an hour, you'll have the cars tip. They generally don't blow up. If you're going 50 or 60 and they start piling into each other, generally you're going to have an explosion. And so it's really the speed is the biggest factor in whether an oil train derailment causes a major disaster or is possibly there's a leak where you've got to just pick up the cars. And so I don't think the fire chief is here tonight. But, I know that was a concern, but that's just my kind of little basic kind of research on that. And as far as who regulates the speeds of trains through town, that would be, I believe, the federal government.
Mr. Strand.
I would like us to answer that question separate from this decision, because I'm not sure it's the federal government, but I'd like to learn more about that.
I can check with the city attorney's office, and when we bring this back for final approval, we try to have an answer for that, whether or not it's the city. Mike, I don't know if you know anything on the regulating.
Well, the difficulty, Commissioner, is that when he approved the Main Street project, we anticipated there'd be some growth along the rail lines as well. So somebody must have wrestled that down. But it's a good question. Maybe, Jim, we can bring that to the next meeting to get those answers. And I think what he's really asking, who regulates it, because just as we've had trouble sometimes with the whistle-free zone, is how fast the trains are going.
And that's my point. I remember one time when Mike Williams was a city commissioner, I was at McDonald's in the drive-through, and there was an oil train barreling by so fast, I couldn't hear the people in the window. They couldn't hear me. My car was rumbling. And I got on the phone and I called Commissioner Williams. I says, who's in charge of this train that was probably going 50 miles an hour through town? What I learned since then is the railroad tells you averages. They won't tell you how fast that particular train at that time, at that location was going. And I've wrestled with this with MetroCog. I would just like to have a clearer picture of the overall safety of oil trains these days now, and what our role and influence is in their safety going forward, especially when we're welcoming development right next to a track.
Yeah, and we'll try to get that information from you. I remember reading years ago at Moorhead, they were actually trying to speed up the trains because they would block the crossing less often, to get through faster. So the concern was they were too slow. So I know there's been some comments, and also the fact if it's a westbound train, it's empty, it's going to be less dangerous than an eastbound train that's full.
Interesting discussion. Sandy, I don't want you dissuaded from that. I know you built next to tankers, so maybe you'll be okay with this, but we will look into that and get the answer. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Roll call vote, please.
If I could just make one comment real quick. The plaza, I'm assuming, will stay in private ownership hands, right?
Correct. That's actually right away.
It's wonderful to see art getting included in the plan for that development. So glad to see that.
Very good. You like the art piece again?
Bring that forward.
Mr. Gary, you got something? Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Preston,
Aye.
Strand,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye. I don't think we have any business. John, do you have any announcements or anything to make at this time?
I don't.
Okay.
I'll move to adjourn and wish everyone a happy new year and be safe. And hopefully 2021 is a lot better than 2020. I think we can all agree on that one.
You're here.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor say aye.
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 We're adjourned. Thank you.